This is an all-new e-bike from YT called the Decoy Supernatural. It's a gravity-inspired enduro e-bike with 160mm of rear travel, a 170mm fork, and it's powered by the Fazua Ride 60 motor.
It's been a while since YT released the original Decoy all the way back in 2019. So 2024, we've got a brand new Decoy. It's called the Decoy SN or Supernatural.
I joined the press camp just a couple of weeks ago to get a couple of days riding in Solbach, Austria. And to meet the team behind the bike, we rode some bike park and some natural techie enduro tracks to get a first impression of the bike.
Now it's a lightweight mid-assist e-bike that is using Fazua's Ride 60 system with a 430 watt-hour battery. So in this video, I'm going to give you a first look, and subscribe because I'm going to do a full video coming soon, but this is a first look around the bike. I'll show you all the bits and pieces and everything you need to know about the YT Decoy Supernatural.
So classic YT look. It's got that design language from YT, nice, sharp, clean lines, and there's some cool engineering on the frame that I'll go through with you. But key stats, mullet. So we've got a 29er at the front and a 27.5 out the rear. This is an enduro bike, a pure enduro bike, and YT say they wanted to make the best enduro bike, not e-bike, but just enduro bike. So this is going up against their Capra to be just an all-out great performing enduro bike. Okay, so we've got a 170mm fork. On this bike, we've got the Fox 38 factory with a new grip X2. And it's running 160mm of rear wheel travel. So there's a few different models and colours. This is the top one, Core 4. And this is full Fox factory, coil. But there's three models in the lineup at the moment. So this bike's running the Fazua Ride 60. Now YT say they tested all of the lightweight e-bike motor systems on the market right now. And this is the one they decided on. And they decided on this because they say that it gives a really natural, quiet ride feel with decent amount of support. It's got the Fazua Ride 60 system with, as you guessed it, 60 Newton meters of torque and a fixed 430 watt-hour battery housed in that down tube there. And like most e-bikes that are coming out, it looks very, very minimalist and very, very kind of clean, and there's not a lot of E that you see. Do you know what I mean? There's no big bulky motors hung out the bottom. The BB area looks really clean and really well designed. And actually on these Fazua motors, the way they are designed is they actually kind of extend out this way. So underneath the BB, if I just get the camera to focus, it's like really small. There's no huge great lumpy thing sticking down here. There's quite a lot of clearance, and the motor's kind of rotated forward and comes to approximately there. So center of gravity and the bike mass, or the motor mass and the weight is slung relatively low, and then the battery is fixed in here just to keep the weight down. Now they did say that they were considering an option to have a removable battery as well, but that would add a kilo, roughly around about a kilo to the weight, because they need to give a bit more structural rigidity, put a bit more hardware in there, and that adds weight. And they find that a lot of people are just happy just to charge the batteries on the bike. So fixed internal battery, personally, I don't mind fixed internal batteries, but I know a lot of people want to take them out for winter and maybe charge indoors. So completely fixed, but that keeps the bike weight down. Now let's talk about the bike weights, because during the press camp they didn't really mention the weights at all, because their theory is, look, they want to build an enduro bike, so 38 fork, coil, beefy tires, and a build spec that is basically designed for you to go and smash down some of the hardest enduro tracks and not have to worry about like the bike underperforming or the tyres getting a hole in them. So they weren't focused on the weight. And the bike weights are between 20 and 21 kilos. So the heaviest has a build weight of around 21 kilograms. That's probably this one. This is an XL. It's got burly tyres. It's got a coil and a Fox 38. They also said they could have made it really light if they wanted to, but they didn't want to build an enduro bike with a 36 and a single can air shock and lightweight tyres. So this is all about enduro performance, and I've had a few laps on it and my early impressions are really positive. I'm in Leogang and Solbach, and we've done a couple of bike park laps and some pretty techie natural enduro tracks. Yeah, and I'm so glad of this build because a 38 and a coil and decent tyres make a massive difference to the performance of the bike. Just some neat features on the frame. I like this. There's no crazy headset cable routing. We've got this like head tube here, and it just looks really nicely industrial designed. Kind of just going in with these rubber ports here to let no water in. You can see how angular it is from these angles here. You can see the light just kind of hit here, how this carbon layup, or the carbon frame shape I should say, just looks kind of aggressive, and you've got these classic kind of YT look and feel and aesthetic about it.
The geometry on it is not super extreme. Actually, we rode the bike for the first time for a day without knowing anything about the bike in terms of the geometry or the numbers at all, which was quite a cool way of doing it, because sometimes you can get in your head a preconception as to how it might ride. And they had us write down on a sheet of paper what we thought the geometry was. So I guessed it was 63.5 degrees, and it's not. It's actually steeper. It's like 64.2 degrees, the head angle, which is not like super slack by any means. You can put it in a low setting as well. There's one flip chip that lowers the bottom bracket, slackens out the head angle. It takes it like a very small amount down. It's not hugely significant to the head angle, but it lowers it and will give it a bit more stability on some of the super steep stuff. So I guess you could argue that maybe it's like not super progressive. They're not going really out there with a geo. It's kind of tried and tested enduro geometry, which I'm cool with. Like I would have thought it was a little bit slacker than it actually is. So it means it turns quite quick. It's not like crazy lazy to turn, but it's slack enough to hit some steep stuff in Leogang. So again, just super first impression on it. It feels very, very stable, very fast actually, and pretty active, even though it's not like the super light. And in my experience with lightweight bikes, like if you make them too light, they get pinged around and they feel a little bit jittery. And most of the lightweight bikes that I've had, I've put on heavier tires. I've tried them with coil shocks and 38 forks instead of like 30, 35 or 36. And I can't see any downsides personally to having that extra weight. I think it makes sense. And certainly if you're riding enduro tracks, bike park, all that stuff, yeah, having that extra comfort, that extra support, and extra grip from burlier tyres and burlier components is certainly something that I would choose personally over a lighter weight build.
Details on the frame. This looks quite beefy. They've kind of over-engineered this to make it stiff, and you can see how chunky the chainstay and seat stay is, and then they've got this carbon linkage here. Again, it's pretty beefy, that construction. It looks like it's built to withstand quite a lot of hard riding. YT's classic, I think they call it V4L design, their rear linkage. It's got like a little horse link pivot just down here, and this shock is driven via this linkage just here, and this is running a coil which runs sweet as. I've got to say it runs so well with this coil. The suspension tune is spot on. Just under here we've got this is a Crank Brothers tool holder, and you can put a tube in there, so it comes with a little tool just in there which you can tyre lever and a tyre stabber, a little kind of strip thing that you can plug your tyre with, and then you can pop a tube or any air cans and things. So it comes with that. It's nice to see. Again, kind of talks to the built for enduro e-bike that they've created. And there you go, you can just see those super clean carbon lines. And if I run down here, look how big this is. This chainstay is massive. Really oversized, loads of kind of noise reducing protection on here, both on the top, underneath, and on the underside of the seat stay, which not a lot of brands do actually, so it's good to see that. Actually, this bike is very quiet, very quiet under power, and no noise that I can hear other than trail noise, no rattle. So if you like a quiet bike, in my experience so far, I've just had a day and a half on it, it is very quiet. Hardly any motor ratchet noise. It's very quiet. And lots of engagement points on that motor. Fazua Ride 60 on is here. This is like the controller. It's so intuitive to use, very easy. You ride along and you hold up or you hold down and that will change the mode on the controller. If you hold up for a few seconds, what it will do is it will give you an extra 100 watts boost. Now the maximum power in the top mode is 350 watts. But if you hold up, it will give you an extra 100 watts boost up to 450 watts for 12 seconds. And you can keep doing that. They've updated it so you can just keep holding up if you want to and keep getting that extra boost. So if you've got a steep section coming up or a really long, boring fire road, you can just get an extra 100 watts to get you up there even quicker. I've said this before, and it's the same with this. I do find this a little bit plasticky and a little bit flimsy. It doesn't quite match, I would say, a premium feel. It's got a sharp edge on there. I think they could do something better with this. It's not really changed since they brought it out. The same with this. It feels a little bit kind of plasticky, and it's just some LEDs on there. It's quite basic, really. That would be really cool one day if it was I'm talking in a few years maybe, but a little display on there. And this, I think I'd like to see that a little bit more premium, but the way the motor performs is excellent.
It's like they've hit the sweet spot in terms of the power, the weight, and the noise, and the battery capacity. 60 newton meters, 350 watts, 100 watts of that overboost, a 430 watt hour battery, a small compact drive unit that is really quiet. And that quietness, I think sometimes we put up with noisy bikes, whiny going up and clattery going down, and it's so nice when that isn't there. You can't really hear much on full power. You can hear a very not distracting hum. It's not like a pitch that is frustrating or irritating. You can certainly hear it. It's not silent, but it's totally fine. It's not something that you even consider. No one would be riding next to you and say, God, that sounds noisy. It's just a noise, an electrical hum that's quite low frequency. And going down, virtually no clatter, rattle, or kind of any noise from the bike. Like, they've done a really good job with the chainstay protection. There's no, or very little audible kind of racketing around from the chain hitting anything. And the motor, yeah, it's really, really quiet. So I can forgive those like cheap plasticky feelings a little bit, because the performance of the motor, how it actually rides, is the most important thing. The aesthetics are only small niggly things, and maybe they can be updated and retrofit over time.
So this top end build is actually running GX, and they said it wasn't for cost thing. They actually say that the GX performs better because the weight distribution of the rear derailleur is more effective, because the way they've mounted the battery on them is like just on top of the mech. And I don't know how true this is, but I guess I trust what they say. They say the standard XX has a battery mounted out here, but the weight balance of having this closer to this axle here and sitting above the mech helps with the weight distribution, which is super interesting. Again, they were keen to point out it wasn't about cost. I actually really like the look of this GX. That battery is tucked away in there, so there's not as much stuff to hit, I guess, as well. Crank Brothers synthesis with an Industry 9 hub. The kit on this is awesome, by the way. Decent wheels, decent tyres, and SRAM's Maven brakes, which are just colossal in the power. Super powerful. Everything spec-wise is like all the new stuff for 25. Maven brakes, Fox's X2, brand new damper that's just come out, DHX shock, DHX2 shock, coil shock. There's a flip chip, just in there. And the massively popular Conti Cryptotal rear and front tyre. Now, on the front, it's got a super soft compound, and in the enduro casing. And on the rear, it's got the soft compound enduro casing. These tyres are brilliant. They're so good. And the longevity, I've been testing one of these in super soft on the rear, and it's lasted ages. It's far exceeded my expectations.
One thing I'm really glad they spent a lot of time on is the seat post length. Now, seat post length, I think, actually makes quite a big difference to the ride experience going down. Getting that dropper out of the way, for me, is critical. And I don't like it when the seat tubes are really high, and the thing that keeps getting in the way for me is the saddle, especially when it gets really steep. The seat tube length on this XL is only 440mm, which is really low, one of the lowest I've seen on a bike this size, which means you can run really long droppers. In fact, I would say this dropper is too small for this bike. Even though it's a 200mm dropper, I think they could easily fit a 230mm dropper in here. I like to get that saddle slammed and out of the way. As you can see, I'm running it really low here. And there's a little bit of a collar, so there's a fairly high stack height on this Postman dropper. The dropper is really effective. The lever is super light, but I'd like to see a 230mm dropper and maybe this stack height reduced slightly. Out of all the colorways, I think this is by far my favorite. This red and silver with this RockShox red Zeb, the new Zeb that's just been released.
There's something about this classic silver and red colourway that just really pops. I think it's aesthetically really pleasing and a great colour scheme. Thanks for watching this first look video. Subscribe if you want to be the first to see the full video, and I'll catch you soon.